Дякуємо вам, оркестру України, велике спасибі. Які?
Додому живо, що вернує сина, додому живо. Не плач, моя рідна, посивівша мати. Я пішов на війну, тебе визволяти. А як не діждешся з тої війни мен, посади, благаю, біля хати клена, посади, благаю, біля хати клена. А туман іде поле, а біда чорне поле, а душа буйним кленом зелений, ой, зелений. А туман біле поле, а біда чорне поле, а душа буйним кленом зелений, зелений. Тягнуться до сонця стовбури кленові, зрошені сльозами горя та любові. Довгими ночами тихо шепчуть віти, то твої країно, найдорожчі діти, то твої країно, найрідніші діти. А туман біле поле, а біда чорне поле, а душа буйним кленом зелений, ой, зелений. А туман білим поле, а душа чорним
Дякую.
Hello, friends. Hello, friends. Hello. Woo! Hello, supporters of Ukraine. Thank you all so much for coming. We're about to begin our program, our official part. But before that, I would like to give this microphone to Irina Mazur from Philadelphia with an announcement to all Philadelphians who came here today. Woohoo! Hello, Philadelphia! Woo!
Дякую, Марино. Слава Україні! Ще раз, щоб Вашингтон нас почув. Слава Україні! Слава Україні! And God bless America! Тепер маленьке оголошення для тих, хто прибув автобусами з Філадельфії. Будь ласка, увага, автобусами. У нас є 7 автобусів з Філадельфії. І оновлена програма станом на сьогодні. Мене всі чують, хто в автобусах був? Помахайте прапорами. Філадельфія! Оновлена програма. Після закінчення цього мітингу ми всі разом все-таки підемо одним маршом до будинку посла рашистів. Ми всі підемо. Ми перенесли відбуття наших автобусів на 6 годину. На 6 годину і автобуси нас заберуть біля резиденції російського посла. Тобто ми всі залишаємося разом в Вашингтоні. Ми всі залишаємося разом в Вашингтоні і йдемо одним маршом. Дякую.
Distinguished guests, our speakers, please take your spot at the stage. Thank you. We're about to begin the program.
Sorry, I don't want to be here.
There, that's better, thank you.
Friends, again, those of you who are standing behind us, please take some spots down there because you want to be able to see our speakers, our wonderful speakers. You want to be able to see the program. Please get down. Thank you.
Good afternoon. 1 year of full-scale war. 1 year of terror, torture, and murder. 1 year of Russian genocide against Ukraine. 1 year of survival. 1 year of Ukrainian courage and resilience. A year when the world came together to say, in words and in actions, we stand with Ukraine. Last month, a Russian missile hit an apartment building in my hometown, the Ukrainian city of Dnipro. Only a 5-minute walk from my family's home. It killed 46 people, 6 of them children. am Nadia Shaparinska, the president of the charity organization US-Ukrainian Activists. America has stood with Ukraine every day of this last year. This is not a metaphor. Members of US-Ukrainian activists, some of them Americans with no Ukrainian roots, have stood in front of the White House in support of Ukraine every single day since the full-scale invasion began on February 24th last year. Today will be rally number 367. Every day of this tragic year, our organization received donations from ordinary Americans, which helped us fund life-saving aid for Ukraine, from burn dressings to bomb shelters. And on a much larger scale, American assistance to Ukraine has made all the difference. Thousands, tens of thousands of people in my hometown alone are only alive today because of US military and humanitarian aid. To us, these lives are everything. Thank you, America, and thank you to each and every one of you who came today to stand with Ukraine. Thank you.
My name is Dora Komiak. I'm the president of Razom for Ukraine. In Ukrainian, Razom means together. Last week, I was in Lviv, Razom, with our teams delivering supplies in Ukraine. Today, I'm honored to stand here together with so many of you here and here who support Ukraine. And we are joined by many others around the country. Over 170,000 Americans from each state have joined our work this year by donating funds and contributing their time and attention. Yeah. And so all together here, together with people around the country, around the world, we call on lawmakers to continue to take concrete steps to ensure Ukrainian victory. Effective and expedited military aid and weapons. We all want peace, but to have peace, we need victory. Together, we as Americans each need to let our representatives know how they can help us help Ukraine. Together, we can continue to work Razom. Thank you. Слава Україні! Слава Україні! Слава Україні! Glory to Ukraine!
Welcome, everyone. I wish we were gathering here today to celebrate victory of Ukraine. But instead, we're here to mark 1 year since Russia's unprovoked full-scale invasion. My name is Marina Bayduk, and I'm the president of United Help Ukraine. We're here today to show Ukrainians and the world that we are united in our support for the brave men and women fighting for Ukraine's freedom, democracy, and sovereignty. When I visited Ukraine in December, what I saw reaffirmed for me what I see here today, that we are united in our support of Ukraine. And I want you to acknowledge the work of everyone who is here today, in a big way or small.
acknowledge it because I know that each and every one of you contributed to bringing Ukrainian victory closer. I also want to express my gratitude to our distinguished guests and speakers for being here with us on this cold, snowy day and showing their support to Ukrainian people. And now, please give a big round of applause to all of you here and millions of people around the world that have been standing with Ukraine this one long year. Big round of applause to all of you here. Thank you. United, we continue to call upon our lawmakers and on the global community to remain committed to providing all necessary military and humanitarian support for the victory in Ukraine. And now, I would like to welcome Angelina Rose to perform American Anthem and Volodymyr Sukhin to perform Ukrainian Anthem. Please stand for the anthems.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight for the ramparts we watch was so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave, the brave.
Woo! Angelina Rose, the winner of Eurovision 2006 in Yurmala. Woo! And now please welcome honored artist of Ukraine, Volodymyr Sukhin, who will perform Ukrainian anthem.
Слава і воля, ще нам, браття молоді, усміхнеться доля. Згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці. Запануєм і браття у своїй сторонці, душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду.
Слава Україні! Слава Україні! Слава Україні! And now please welcome Reverend Father Volodymyr Stelyak, pastor of St. Andrew's Ukrainian Orthodox Cathedral, and Father Robert Hitchens of the Ukrainian Catholic National Shrine of the Holy Family in Washington, D.C. They will lead us in invocation prayer.
Господи Ісусе Христе, Боже наш, ми духовні Твої діти схиляємо коліна наші сьогодні перед Тобою із вдячністю за те, що Ти зберіг Україну, український народ. Зберіг його від захоплення ворожих сил і ворожої війни постійної. З великою смиренністю схиляємо перед Тобою проханням зберегти, благословити лідерів української держави, військо, всі правителі і всі правлячі органи, медиків, комунальників, всіх чоловіків, жінок і дітей, всю українську державу. Бо Ти сказав, все, що в молитві проситимете, будете вірити, дасться вам, і знов просить, і дасться вам. Благослови і охорони наші ці Сполучені Штати Америки, уряд, військо і всіх, які спричиняються на добро. Благослови Сполучені Штати, усіх волонтерів, гуманітарні центри, жертводавців і всі, які моляться і підтримують наших братів і сестер на Україні. Твоє буде милувати і спасати, Христе Боже наш. Тобі славу видаємо Отцю і Синові і Святому Духові нині, повсякчас і на віки вічні. Амінь.
O Lord, God of powers and God of our salvation, O God who alone work wonders, look down with mercy and compassion on your humble servants, and out of love for mankind hearken and have mercy on us and on the land of Ukraine. O Lord, let the words spoken by Moses unto the people of Israel be applied to us. Fear not, stand still, and see the salvation of the Lord. For the Lord shall fight for us. Work for us a sign for good, that they who are filled with hatred may see our faith and be humbled and shaken. Yes, O Lord God, our Savior, our strength, our hope and help, remember not the transgressions and unrighteousness of your faithful people, and turn not away from us in your anger, but visit your mercies and compassions upon your humble servants, those who fight in defense of Ukraine and her much suffering people. Outnumbered at times, hear us who fall down before your deep compassion. With your mercy enlighten and make glad the hearts of the civil authorities, and strengthen them by your might. Rise up to their help and lay low the evil counsels purposed against them by the enemy. Judge them that provoke and make war, and turn their impious boldness into fear and flight. But grant unto the just and God-fearing people of Ukraine great boldness and courage to advance and overtake them and to defeat them in your name. And unto them that you have judged to lay down their lives for faith and country, forgive them their trespasses, and in a day of righteous reckoning, grant unto them incorruptible crowns. For you are the health and victory and salvation of them who put their hope in you. And unto you do we send up glory to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, now and forever and ever. Amen.
Fathers, thank you very much for your prayers. Thank you so much for your service. Thank you so much for all your support, what you give for Ukraine at these difficult, tragic times. We would like to celebrate and thank a diplomat that US Ukrainian activists has had the honor to work with during this tragic and challenging year. I would like to express our deep appreciation to Her Excellency Oksana Makarova, Ambassador of Ukraine to the United States. Ms. Makarova may not command troops in battle, but the role she plays here in Washington carries responsibilities as heavy as those of any general. Our ambassador and her team work daily on matters that bear consequences of life and death for people back home in Ukraine.
Thank you, Nadia.
Under Ambassador Makarova, we have seen the relationship between Ukraine and America strengthen into an unbreakable bond. We have seen an unprecedented level of cooperation and assistance between Ukraine and our most important partner, the United States. We have seen this cooperation extends across the political aisle to unite Republicans and Democrats, a major feat in this time of divisive politics. Madam Ambassador, you have the gratitude and respect of each and every one of us in the Ukrainian community. Thank you very much for rising to the occasion with constant hard work and the highest level of professionalism and skill. Your Excellency, Ambassador Oksana Makarova, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nadia. Too kind. I was almost thinking you're talking about someone else. Wow, what a day. Dear Ambassador Power, dear Secretary Donfrid, Secretary Bassett, my friend Ambassador Lambrinidis, and so many ambassadors that we have with us here today. Dear Reverend Fathers, leaders, volunteers of each Ukrainian and American organization here, дорогі українці, all Ukrainians, by birth, by blood, and by choice, dear Americans, thank you so much for gathering here at the Lincoln Memorial to demonstrate your unwavering support and your unwavering solidarity with Ukraine and our people. When I listen to both anthems every time, I notice that they both focus on two traits which are not unique but the same for Ukraine and the US: bravery and freedom. Love to freedom and readiness to fight for it. Bravery to defend homes and loved ones. from the aggressive intruders. Today we mark 1 year of a full-fledged aggression and invasion, and almost 9 years since Russian Federation attacked Ukraine and became this unprovoked, totally unfair, and totally unjustified war. Before the 24th of February last year, we all knew that we will not surrender, that we will not give up, that we will fight for the civilizational choice we Ukrainians have made in so many centuries. And so many Ukrainians fought for this here in the United States, while Ukraine was still under Soviet occupation. We decisively made the choice in 1991, and we have to remind everyone that in 1991, 98% of Ukrainians voted to be independent, voted to be free. Everywhere, including Crimea, Donetsk, Lugansk, Kharkiv, Lviv, everywhere. That choice we have defended in each free and fair elections, which we held since 1991. That choice, when Russian revisionists wanted to steal from us, Ukrainian people said resounding no on Maidan in 2004 and on Maidan in 2014. It's the choice for which our Heavenly Hundred paid the ultimate price, and it's the choice for which our defenders are paying the ultimate price today. Among us here, there are a number of soldiers, wounded soldiers and veterans. Thank you for your service. Дякую вам за вашу службу. It's because of you I can stand here and talk. So today I stand here on the 365th day of the new reality in which we all live. The 365th day of brutal Russian war, of the largest war since the World War II in our part of the planet. 365 days of horrible atrocities, war crimes, done to men, women, and children everywhere in Ukraine. 365 days of sorrow, losses, tragedies, and destruction. But we are not talking about that today. We are talking about 365 days of heroic, almost impossible fight Ukrainians put defending our homes, loved ones, our independence, our dignity, our sovereignty, freedom, and democracy. Fight that was made possible by leadership and bravery of our President Volodymyr Zelensky, of our troops, their mastery and devotion of every man and woman who serves on the battlefront today. Patriotism of our business, Ukrainian and American, small and large, continuing the fight everywhere in Ukraine, and resilience of all Ukrainians. 365 days of solidarity of American people, and unparalleled support that we have received during this year from President Biden, from administration, from Congress on a very strong bipartisan basis, from every American citizen. Thank you, Americans, for each weapon, for each taxpayer's dollars of help, for each prayer, for each flag that we see outside of American houses, for each letter you write to your representatives and to your senators, asking to stay the course, continue the support. Thank you, and please do more. Historic visits from President Zelensky from Bakhmut to Washington, D.C., and historic visit of President Biden from Washington, D.C. to Kiev and Warsaw has proven the unbreakable ties between our nations, between the people, based on the two values, bravery and freedom. So we will always remember what the United States has done to us in this, helping us to defend our country. 365 days, of course, also of European family devoted solidarity, when European Union and each of the European Union states not only opened their borders, their homes, their hearts for us, but also provided unprecedented support and welcomed us as a candidate to the European Union while we are fighting for the European values on the battlefield. We used to say that you never know how strong you are until being strong is the only choice you have. Being strong and fighting for our country is the only choice we have now. And we are strong, and Ukrainians are united. from our president to each of the 40 millions back home and to many more millions everywhere in the world. We already won when we didn't allow Russia to take Kyiv in 3 days. We already won when Mariupol stood longer than any besieged city and allowed others to prepare to defend. We already won when we liberated Kyiv Oblast, Kharkiv Oblast, and Kherson. We already won when we survived this winter, when Russians, not being able to fight on the battlefield, decided to destroy all the civilian and energy infrastructure in Ukraine. We stand here in the place where Martin Luther King Jr. said, "I have a dream," a historic phrase for not only Americans, but everyone who fights for freedom. And we Ukrainians have a dream. We have a dream of how this war will end. In victory of Ukraine and all free world. In justice served to all responsible, from Putin to the last soldier, Russian soldier, war criminal on the battlefield. To all Ukrainians returning home. And in inspiring post-war renovation of the country, leapfrogging into successful, prosperous European Ukraine, member of European Union and NATO, and key to resolving so many problems that Russia created for the world. So we have not only a dream, but we have a plan, which is a very simple plan, which we had from the day one. More weapons, more support to Ukraine, and more sanctions to Russia. And we just have to be brave, stay united, help each other more, and win this together. So God bless you all who came today. God bless our troops. God bless America. And of course, Slava Ukraini!
Dear Pani Makarova, our Ukraine is lucky to have diplomat like you, serving at the forefront of international diplomacy. Thank you all you have accomplished, and for the hard work you continue to do every day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
To many of you, the following speaker will require no introduction. It is my honor and pleasure to welcome Ms. Samantha Power, the Administrator of USAID. Administrator Power is a leading advocate for human rights and democracy. Her career includes roles as a war correspondent, author, US Ambassador to the United Nations, and more. In each of these roles, Ms. Power has brought every ounce of her moral strength and conviction into her work to build a better world for all of us. We are profoundly grateful for the assistance provided to Ukraine by USAID under the leadership of Administrator Power. This is... Thank you so much. This assistance has played a critical role in this conflict, ensuring that everyone in Ukraine, from our farmers to our soldiers, can continue their daily battle for survival. Without further ado, I present to you Administrator Samantha Power.
Thank you, everybody. It is my great privilege to be here with you today. I brought my children, Declan and Rian. Well, thank you for that. They'll be grateful for that. But I brought them to bring home for them that the fight in Ukraine is just not, it's not only about the right of children in Ukraine to live without fear of attack, to live with the knowledge that they can shape their own futures, to live knowing they can be warm in winter again in the future. It is not only for the children of Ukraine that the Ukrainian people are fighting, but they are fighting for free children and their rights and their safety and their dignity everywhere. So thank you, Ukraine. Thank you. I want to just underscore the comments that were made, the praise that was given to your ambassador here in the United States. Ambassador Makarova is special. She is relentless. She is unbelievably effective at bringing home the human and the strategic stakes of this conflict. And we are all so incredibly fortunate that she is representing Ukraine at this time. Thank you, Ambassador. When Vladimir Putin launched his full-scale invasion a year ago, he thought that Ukraine's resistance would crumble, that he could claim a sovereign nation as part of his own, that he had started a fight that he would quickly win. But today it is Ukraine who is winning. By resisting Putin's onslaught, by showing authoritarians that democracy still stands, by remaining strong, resilient, proud, and free. These victories belong to the Ukrainian people who persist, but it cannot go without mention, who persist at unbearable cost, heartbreaking cost. To the engineers creating portable stoves to help the army stay warm, thank you. To the doctors leaving their day jobs to train troops in combat medicine, thank you. To the teachers in the classrooms and in the trenches, thank you. To the farmers on the front lines and those who continue to harvest their crops to feed not only Ukraine but the world, thank you. And to the ordinary Ukrainians risking their lives for their country's survival, independence, and democratic future, thank you. To the Ukrainian people, I echo President Biden when I say the United States is behind you for as long as it takes. For as long as it takes. As Putin wages his brutal assaults, the United States has helped Ukrainian forces defend their country. As Putin's forces attack critical infrastructure, subjecting the Ukrainian people to weather far colder than this, on purpose. As he does that, the United States has helped Ukraine keep the lights on, keep the heat running, keep the clean water flowing. As Putin's forces attempt to destroy Ukraine's economy, we have helped Ukrainian businesses get the resources they need to reopen their doors, to relocate in some cases, to get as many Ukrainians as possible back to work. And as Putin tries to bully other nations into supporting his brutal aggression, President Biden has rallied democracies around the world to stand up for Ukraine and to stand with Ukraine. Today, Ukraine is winning, and its victories stretch far beyond the battlefield. Putin tried to force Ukraine to submit to his will, to cede the right to decide its own future. But Putin so underestimated the will and the dignity of the Ukrainian people. He underestimated the power of their dreams, of your dreams, of a future where Ukraine is stronger, more prosperous, more democratic than before. Today, Ukrainians are doing more than just dreaming of that future. Even as the bombs rain down, as the missiles rain down, Ukrainians are working right now to build that future. The United States will continue to be a partner not only in Ukraine's defense, not only in the war to defeat Putin and his forces, but in the fight to strengthen Ukraine's democracy and its economy. We will provide the seeds and supplies to the farmers who are out there sidestepping unexploded landmines to plant next year's crops right now. We will help bring international businesses back to Ukraine to help build a resilient economy and put Ukrainians back to work. And we will continue to fund watchdog organizations and independent media that will help root out corruption and keep the government accountable to its people. So today, as I stand before this enduring symbol of democracy in front of a crowd committed to fighting for the democratic rights of all people, I say once again to Ukraine, you are winning. Winning back not only your territory, but your fundamental right to chart your own destiny. And winning the fight on behalf of democracies everywhere to protect sovereignty, independence, freedom, the rule of law, and dignity, which is so at the core of the Maidan revolution and so at the core of the fight today. Every day this war goes on is a day too long, and we can never lose sight of the human cost of what Putin has done. But we know that you will prevail, and the United States stands with you for as long as it takes. Slava Ukraini. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Ambassador Power, for your important work to support Ukraine in these tragic for Ukraine times. We would like to invite Karen Donfried, the Assistant Secretary of State for European and Eurasian Affairs. Prior to her current position, she served as President of the German Marshall Fund of the United States from April 2014 to September 2021. We are grateful to Dr. Donfried for her work on behalf of Ukraine, dealing with some of the most crucial and delicate negotiations required to create and maintain this international coalition in support of Ukraine's survival. Thank you, Dr. Donfried, for embodying America's unwavering connection with Ukraine. Thank you for the work you do in binding the nations of the free world together in alliance against tyranny. This is the very work that will decide what kind of a world our children will get to live in, both in Ukraine and here in America. Dr. Donfried, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am so honored to be on this stage with Oksana, Makarova, and Samantha Power. Please join me in thanking them again for their remarkable leadership and principled integrity. It is inspiring to see so many people all around us here in support of Ukraine. A sea of blue and yellow, the colors of a free, democratic Ukraine. We are here to mark a somber occasion, the one-year anniversary of Russia's brutal war against Ukraine. A war that was not provoked, a war that resulted from the decision of one man, Vladimir Putin, who wanted to erase Ukraine from the map. But Vladimir Putin has learned a few things over the past year. For one, never underestimate Ukrainians. When President Biden was in Warsaw earlier this week, he said, 1 year ago, the world was bracing for the fall of Kyiv. Well, I have just come from a visit to Kyiv, and I can report Kyiv stands strong. Kyiv stands proud. It stands tall. And most important, it stands free. Ukrainians have defended their country with remarkable bravery and resolute resilience. When Russia began its barrage of Ukraine's critical civilian infrastructure this fall, including energy infrastructure, it sought to weaponize winter. It sought to plunge a nation of 40 million people into darkness and cold as winter approached. But Ukrainians did not flinch. Another thing Putin has learned is that the United States and a global coalition of countries that believe in Ukraine and believe in, just a sec, and believe in the principles codified in the United Nations Charter, respect for sovereignty, respect for territorial integrity. Might does not make right. Those countries joined hands with Ukraine, and we together have given Ukraine unprecedented support over the past year to help Ukraine defend itself. On Thursday, the United Nations General Assembly called for ending the war in Ukraine and demanded Russia's immediate, complete, and unconditional withdrawal of all of its military forces from the territory of Ukraine within its internationally recognized borders. 141 member states voted in favor and 7 voted against. Those 7 were Belarus, North Korea, Eritrea, Mali, Nicaragua, Russia, and Syria. That tally speaks volumes. Putin has sought to splinter our global coalition. He has failed. We are stronger precisely because we stand united with so many others who want to live in a world where the principles enshrined in the UN Charter are respected, not shredded. The UN Charter begins with these words: "We, the peoples of the United Nations, determined to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war." There is one man who can end the war in Ukraine tomorrow, and that man is Vladimir Putin. If Russia stops fighting, the war ends. If Ukraine stops fighting, Ukraine ends. We will ensure that Ukraine prevails. We will also hold Russia accountable for the egregious crimes its forces have committed against civilians in Ukraine: rape, murder, torture, deportation of Ukrainian civilians, including children, forcibly separated from their families. As Secretary Blinken has said, wherever the Russian tide recedes, we discover the horror that is left in its wake. Think Bucha, think Izium, where mass graves were discovered. This is why the United States determined that Russia has committed crimes against humanity and has pledged to hold those involved to account. No one wants this war to end more than Ukrainians. They are the ones dying. They are the ones living the horror of war. But it can't be any peace. The nature of that peace matters. It must be a just and a durable peace. A just peace means that Ukraine's territorial integrity must be restored. A durable peace means that Russia cannot simply rest and refit and then relaunch its war in months or years. So many of you here today have made your own important contributions to supporting Ukraine. Some of you are supplying critical medical supplies. Others are lifting up voices from Ukraine to ensure Americans hear those voices and understand the reality. Together, we are making a difference for Ukraine. Together, we are stronger, and we are making Ukraine stronger. To our friends in Ukraine, thank you. Thank you for inspiring us every single day as you stand up to Russia's brutal aggression. The price you are paying is heartbreaking. But know that we will stand with you for as long as it takes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Assistant Secretary, for your wonderful speech. We're so honored to have you stand with us today. Our next speaker, Mrs. Kimberly Bassett, was appointed to her position as Secretary of State for the District of Columbia in December 2018. Prior to her role, Kimberly Bassett was the former director of the Mayor's Office on Women's Policy and Initiatives. A dedicated public servant, an ardent supporter of Ukraine and its efforts for freedom, please join me in welcoming the district's own Secretary of State, Kimberly Bassett.
Hello, good afternoon, Your Excellency, Makarova, distinguished guest. Good afternoon, my name is Kimberly Bassett, as she said, Secretary of State for Washington, D.C., and it's my privilege to be with you today at the Lincoln Memorial, a monument honoring one of our nation's most revered champions of democracy and freedom. I'm also reminded today of another American hero, the great Frederick Douglass, who escaped slavery only to devote his life to abolishing slavery, to winning freedom and democracy from all. Frederick Douglass strongly believed that democracy lifts the human spirit. And on this first anniversary of the brutal invasion of Ukraine, each of us must pledge to do everything possible to uphold the fundamental principle of human rights and democracy that lift us up and bind us together. Since the invasion began, residents of Washington, D.C. have opened their homes, provided jobs, raised money, and proudly flown the Ukrainian flag in solidarity and support of our Ukrainian brothers and sisters. And we will continue to support you for as long as it takes. Yes. Last night, Washington, D.C.'s bridge, named for Frederick Douglass, was brightly lit in the colors of blue and yellow for the Ukrainian flag as a symbol of Kyiv, Ukraine, and the Ukrainian people standing strong, and they will continue to stand strong until victory is won. Yes. And your victory will be our victory. And all of the more than 700,000 people of Washington, D.C., including my mayor, Muriel Bowser, we will continue to stand with Ukraine. The strong, the courageous Ukrainian people have shown us that they will never waver in the face of adversity, and neither will we. We believe that all people have the right to live without fear of intimidation or oppression. And we stand with you in your fight for freedom because we know that until all of us are free, none of us are free. We are DC, you are DC. God bless America and God bless the Ukraine. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Madam Secretary. Our next guest, Ambassador of the European Union to the USA, Stavros Lambrinidis, has served in this capacity since March of 2019. A native of Athens, Greece, His Excellency served as the EU Special Representative for Human Rights from 2012 to 2019. Stavros is all too familiar with international human rights violations, like those currently being inflicted on our beloved Ukraine by Putin and his regime. Your Excellency, thank you for your dedication to public service and for your presence here today as we continue to fight this unlawful war in Ukraine. Ambassador.
Dear friends, on behalf of the 27 ambassadors of the member states of the European Union, most of whom are here today, and please raise your hand so people can see you. Thank you. I stand here with a pledge that Europeans remain 100% committed to the Ukrainian people in this existential fight. Our support is steadfast, it is unwavering, it is massive, it is decisive, and it will continue indeed as long as it takes. This fight is above all else about the future of Ukraine. Putin cannot be allowed to tear apart an independent country. Putin cannot be allowed to tear up the international laws of peace that all human beings rely on for their protection. To our friends across the United States and around the world, in Africa, in Asia, in Latin America, I stress that this fight is about protecting all people's human dignity, all people's right to freedom and self-determination. And thank you to the 141 countries at the United Nations this week who said just that. Russia, get your troops out of Ukraine now. Ukraine, you deserve peace, but it cannot be a peace that tears up the UN Charter. It has to be a peace that respects international law, and that's the peace that we will bring to this fight. Russia, get out first though, okay? You have no right to be there. All right, now Putin, others have said this, Putin thought that our unity would crumble, that his actions would split apart the European Union, that they would weaken NATO, that they would challenge the transatlantic partnership, and boy, oh boy, wasn't he wrong. Today, Americans and Europeans stand closer together than ever before. We stand proud to shoulder the responsibility of helping our Ukrainian brothers and sisters win this war. We stand together because the future of the European continent and of peace in the world is being written right now. It is being written in battles across Ukraine, where heroes are defending their homeland, where children, mothers, soldiers face Putin's brutal war crimes with their heads and their spirits held proud and high. And it is being written literally in the document making Ukraine an official candidate of EU membership. There is one direction for Ukraine, a prosperous and peaceful future within the European Union. Now, dear friends, I know that for some, this war is hard, including here in the United States. After 1 year, journalists, others talk to me, and they tell me, look at the polls. Some people are getting tired of supporting. I know it is tiring to watch this terrifying brutality every day, to have to live with it every day, to have to understand it, look at the news. But this, getting tired, is exactly what Putin is counting on. He is betting that at some point we will get tired. He is hoping we will show weakness. Are we going to let him win this bet? No way. No way. Because, and I'll tell you something else, this war may seem to be thousands of miles away from this amazing historic spot, but there is no safe distance when an autocrat sitting on nuclear weapons is convinced that he can bend the will of Americans and Europeans to his own. Our democracies are fighting today next to Ukraine's democracy, and if Putin wins, then we will have a real hard time projecting the power and the beauty of democracy for decades to come. So he will not win. We will not let him win, because this, among other things, is Ukraine's war of independence. Dear Oksana, Americans and Europeans can never match, ever, your courage and the courage of the Ukrainian people, but together we can, we do, and we will stand by your side every day. Putin will not write these stories ending. With our steadfast support, Ukrainians will write this story's ending, and it will be victorious, it will be hopeful, it will be just, and it will be peaceful.
Thank you.
And, dear friends, from now on, we shall not say, I bet you, that the Ukrainians fight like heroes. We will say that heroes fight like Ukrainians. Slava Ukraini!
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Wonderful words. I love it. Let's be brave like Ukrainians. Woo! But at this moment, we also want to remember those who sacrificed their lives for Ukrainian freedom and democracy, and not just for Ukrainian, the entire world, the entire democratic world. And we would like to play a song that for many of us is very special. Pline Kacha. We remember that song from 2014 when the first 100 brave men were killed in Kiev on Maidan. We still remember them. And there are many more, hundreds of heavenly hundred. Many more heroes that will never die in our hearts. Please welcome the band Trioda, who you heard before this official part, to perform the song. And Father Volodymyr will say a few words.
Зараз сьогодні ми бачимо цю чудову мозаїку любові і підтримки українського народу. Ми бачимо підтримку наших лідерів, дипломатів. І сьогодні ми тут не є самі, хоча нас багато, ми разом тут, але тут над нами є ангели, ті, які втратили своє життя, і вони є з нами сьогодні, і ми вічно будемо молитись за них у церквах, у домах і в наших душах. Слава Україні і слава героям!
по тій синій, плине кача по тій синій. Мамко ж моя, не лай мене, залаєш ми в злу годину, залаєш ми в злу годину. Сам не знаю, де погину, сам не знаю, де погину. Гей, погину я в чужім краю, погину я в чужім краю. Хто ж ми буде брати яму? Хто ж ми буде брати яму? Гей, виберуть ми чужі люди, виберуть ми чужі люди. Ці не жаль ти, мамко, буде, ці не жаль ти, мамко, буде. Гей, якби ж мені, синку, не жаль, якби ж мені, синку, не жаль, ти ж на моїм серцю лежав, ти ж на моїм серцю лежав.
Art is such a powerful tool for all of us, and it fuels the resilience of Ukrainians around the world. And so it's my great pleasure to ask you to help me in welcoming an artist who's coming from snowy Los Angeles today. You'll see her in Star Wars coming up soon in a limited series. Please welcome the actress, producer, and activist Ivana Sakhno.
A lot has been said. A lot will be said. Yet there's no way to convey what the invasion of your motherland feels like. This war is not only about Putin's desire to seize territory. This war is about those who suffer from his desires. This war is in those who had to flee their home, not knowing when they would be able to return. It is in the wounded villages and cities, in Mariupol, Bucha, Kharkiv, and Kherson. This war is in the child's eyes, witnessing Russian soldiers breaking into their home, their father being shot, their mother raped. It's in the women's bodies. Ask one of those women what the invasion feels like. Ask a Ukrainian soldier what the invasion feels like. Ask a parent what it feels like to pull their lifeless child from the rubble. It's an invasion on so many fronts. One in the home, one in the heart, one in the body. It's a crime against natural justice and order. It's an affront to freedom. It's an affront to human decency. This past year has been one of immense pain. It has also been one of resilience and victory. I am proud of my nation that stands against merciless evil when it attacks from all sides. I am proud of my people who were victorious in the battles of Kyiv, Kharkiv, and Kherson. I am proud of my father who, during the onset of the full-scale invasion, was relocating orphans and families of soldiers from Kyiv to safer parts of Ukraine, and has since been documenting the war in the hottest regions of our country. We've been watching the birth of new icons, everyday Ukrainians putting themselves in harm's way for the love of their people, love of freedom, and their motherland. The woman with the sunflower seeds, the ghost of Kyiv, the soldiers of Snake Island. In just the first few hours of the full-scale invasion, Ukrainians etched powerful stories of nationhood into our collective history with their bravery, blood, and words. The history of our freedom has never been easy. Growing up, I remember the Orange Revolution. I remember the Revolution of Dignity. I also remember the occupation of Donbass and the annexation of Crimea, where my grandmother lives, whom I have not been able to see ever since. Generations and generations of Ukrainians took part in revolutions and resistance, endured calamity once and again. We carry with us the stories of our predecessors sent to gulags and into exile. Today, we're forced to tell the stories of Ukrainian families sent to filtration camps, of children kidnapped and trafficked to Russia. Standing on our free land, we resist the Russian invasion. We die under artillery. And every morning, in the moment of silence, resurrect within us our fallen warriors of light. Ukrainians, though divided by colonial borders or subdued by authoritarian rule throughout history, have always been unapologetically united in their belief in Ukraine. Putin denies Ukraine and the international law, but everything Putin denies will inevitably bury him. We will never surrender. Our victory is inevitable. But the fight is not over. Each one of you standing here, Ukrainian and otherwise, is a vital part in ensuring this victory and the safety of all future generations in our home and yours. Ukraine's spirit is unchained and unshackled. Ukraine is love. Love of my life, with a deep love for freedom, love for democracy, love for a united victory. Slava Ukraini!
Thank you, Ivanko. I'd like to convert that love into work. I'd like to invite Michael Saukiu, who's the director of the Ukrainian National Information Service here in Washington, D.C. Michael?
Reverend Fathers, honored guests, dear friends of Ukraine, дорогі українці, слава Україні! If you look behind me, at the iconic memorial that enshrines the 16th President of the United States. His words and his deeds are truly inspirational for the democratic world. A famous quote attributed to President Lincoln that has parallels to the war in Ukraine summarizes the current reality. And I quote, "We have, as all will agree, a free government where every man has the right to be equal with every other man. In this great struggle, this form of government and every form of human rights is endangered if our enemies succeed." End quote. But we cannot allow, and we will not allow, the enemy, Russia, the aggressor terrorist state, to succeed in Ukraine. Not now, not ever. We are thankful to President Biden for his historic trip to Ukraine earlier this week. And many congressional delegations that also have visited Ukraine. And while we are grateful, we also know that Ukraine needs more security assistance from the United States and the world to be victorious in this ultimate fight of good versus evil. USA, arm Ukraine. USA, arm Ukraine. USA, arm Ukraine. USA, arm Ukraine. We are equally and immeasurably grateful for the heroic defenders of Ukraine on the front lines of aggression on cold days, even colder days than today, defending not just Ukraine, but democracy worldwide. To these modern-day heroes of Ukraine, we say дякую. And lastly, to every single American and world citizen, we are grateful for your empathy, outpouring of support both financially and morally, to be with the Ukrainian nation as that country withstands a genocide of epic proportions, the likes of which have not been seen in decades. The Ukrainian nation has experienced genocide before. We have endured. We are resilient. We have overcome travesty. But justice must be applied today to stop the genocide. Russia is a terrorist state. Justice will prevail. Ukraine will be victorious. Slava Ukraini! It is an honor and a pleasure to introduce the President of the Ukrainian Congress Committee of America, a representative organization of us 2 million Americans of Ukrainian descent, Mr. Andrew Fute.
For 12 months, the brave Ukrainian men and women have been standing on the front lines of democracy, defending all of Europe from Russia's advancing tyranny. The toll has been staggering for Ukraine. Thousands have been killed. Over 6.5 million have fled to the safety of other countries. 8 million are internally displaced within the borders of Ukraine. And thousands of Ukrainian children have been stolen and trafficked into Russia. Make no mistake, Russia is committing genocide brazenly in full view of the world. The aggressor's genocidal war against Ukraine has created the largest humanitarian crisis Europe has experienced since World War II. We express our profound gratitude to all those who have laid down their lives in defense of our common shared values, human rights, and democracy. If we fail to adhere to our stated principles and even think about abandoning Ukraine, not only will we compromise our moral and ethical foundation, but we will fundamentally undermine the national security interests of the United States. If Ukraine is allowed to fall, Russia will not stop at Ukraine's borders, and the future course of world history will grow dark. What happens in Ukraine today determines how the coming generations will live, whether they will live in democracies or in totalitarian states, whether their lives will be free or whether they will be in servitude. As President Biden stated, because in the moments of great upheaval and uncertainty, knowing what you stand for is most important, and knowing who stands with you makes all the difference. We stand for those principles of freedom, decency, and democracy, and have advocated that all who stand for these values stand with Ukraine. Recognizing that Ukraine is in the fourth line of defense, today, more than ever, we must provide Ukraine all the timely assistance it needs in her fight for freedom, including military support in the form of all possible tanks, air defense systems, and yes, fighter jets. For victory must be attained. There is no alternative. Slava Ukraini!
It is now an honor and a pleasure to introduce the President of the Ukrainian World Congress, the coordinating body of the Ukrainian diaspora, 20 million throughout the world. Please welcome Mr. Paul Grod.
Dear Ukrainians and friends of Ukraine, the number of friends of Ukraine today is in the hundreds of millions, if not billions, of people around the world. Because everybody who stands for liberty, freedom, democracy, and human rights today is a friend of Ukraine. The solemn anniversary of Russia's full-scale genocidal invasion and 9 years of war in Ukraine is important to commemorate, as it reminds us that we cannot go about our daily lives without thinking and doing something to stop the war crimes and crimes against humanity that are taking place in Ukraine every day. I am proud that we are joined together with over 300 cities in over 45 countries around the world that have joined us to unite with Ukraine and its people. I was at the United Nations earlier this week speaking at a symposium about the human rights violations being committed by Russia in occupied Ukraine today. When the witnesses told their horrifying stories of rape, torture, murder perpetrated by their Russian jailers, there was not a dry eye in the hall. But these were not isolated incidents, but rather a systemic effort by the Russian leadership to destroy the Ukrainian nation. Ladies and gentlemen, Russia is committing genocide in real time in Ukraine. A ceasefire and an end to the war without Ukraine liberating its people from Russia's imprisonment and torture is not an option. We must ensure victory for Ukraine before any negotiations begin. And we must win with two battles: the fight for Ukraine to liberate its territory and the fight for justice. For justice to prevail and Russia to change, we must establish an international Russian war crimes tribunal. The Ukrainian World Congress is calling upon the United Nations to establish an international Russian war crimes tribunal akin to the Nuremberg trials of World War II, to bring the Russian leadership to justice for designing, executing this plan to occupy and terminate the Ukrainian people. Ukraine deserves justice. We must impose more crippling sanctions on Russia's economy to stop their ability to finance their war and send missile strikes at Ukraine's civilian population on an almost daily basis. Russia must be isolated and punished for their murders, tortures, sexual violence, destruction, and total disregard for the rules-based international order. They must be expelled from all international organizations. Their athletes must be banned from the Olympic Games and all other international events. Their propagandists and apologists must be expelled and excluded from all international arenas. Friends and friends of Ukraine, Ukraine will be victorious. The question is when? How many lives will be lost and people's futures will be destroyed, and at what cost? We must all make a difference each and every day to stop Russia and its enablers now. Slava Ukraini! До перемоги!
Thank you so much, Pavlo, Mikhailo, and Andriy. Powerful words, together to victory. And all Ukrainian women and men are fighting now for the future of Ukraine, the young generation. And it is my pleasure to introduce Taras Shevchenko, School of Ukrainian Studies, and the school director, Tatiana Mazur. Murza, бачите? Tatiana Murza. The school has recently celebrated its 60th anniversary. And we're very proud that the school continues to bring Ukrainian culture, Ukrainian language, and teach our kids in Ukrainian heritage. Tatiana, please.
Дякую, Марина. Слава Україні! So, as Marina said, I'm the principal of the School of Ukrainian Studies of Greater Washington, D.C. area. For 60 years, we have been teaching and passing to new generation of children Ukrainian language, culture, history, and literature. All through last year, as Russia war ravaged our beloved Ukraine, our school became one of the main gathering centers for Ukrainian families in Greater Washington, D.C. area. Many Ukrainians, particularly women with children, were forced to relocate to many countries. We readily welcomed those that came to DC area, provided them with the support of our community and spiritual home away from home. Today, several of our children would like to share our school spirit with you. They will recite poems by famous Ukrainian poets. The first one is by Mikhailo Ivasyuk. This poem celebrates the Ukrainian language for its strength, survival, and capacity for infinite expression. The Ukrainian language has been oppressed, persecuted, and banned by both Tsarist and Soviet governments. So, Katerina Mariot, 5th class, вірш Михайла Івасюка.
Гей, люди, чом це наша мова, така шляхетна і гонорова? Тремтіти має, наче сарна, як мчиться в неї ціла псарня. Та ж українська дивомова, похідний марш і колискова, і жайвір під травневим сонцем, щедрівка батька під віконцем, гірські потоки цуркотання, і соловейкове лещання, і шелест жита, і пшениці, ритм дощу і громовиці. У нашій українській мові живе освічена в любові, і люта ненависть ката, по гордах днів дарена гата, поезія степів і моря, жага несвітаних просторів, державний гімн і спів молитви, і гук війни, і скрегіт битви. В ній доля наша, в зло закута, і клич Дніпрового могуття, і духу нашого твердиня, краси скарбниця і святиня.
Дякую, Катруся. The next poem is by Vitaly Mikhalevsky. Good evening, we are from Ukraine. It's the calling card phase of Mykolaiv Governor Vitaly Kim. Mykolaiv, a southern Ukrainian port, has been subjected to intense Russian shelling again and again. We are from Ukraine is the voice of all Ukrainian cities under attack. Kyiv, Kharkiv, Chernihiv, Kherson, Mariupol, Sumy.
Всім доброго вечора. Ми з України. Ні слава, ні воля не вмерли ще ні. Ми Суми, і Харків, і острів Зміїний. Ми Київ, Чернігів, Херсон і Ірпінь. Ми є Маріуполь. Відплата вже близько. Ніколи не були братами русні. Бо нас колисали у різних колисках і різні співали весільні пісні. Ми Львів, Миколаїв, нас доля єдина, тому не жалійте ні сил, ані куль. Всім доброго вечора. Ми Україна. Усе буде добре. 4-5-0.
And our last poem by Vasyl Simonenko. The following poem by Vasyl Simonenko, an important poet from the 1960s, challenges Ukraine's enemies. You will come and fail, Simonenko writes, but my people will always prevail. Катруся Синенко, 8 клас.
Де зараз ви, кити мого народу? Де велич ваша, сила ваша де? Неясні зорі і не тихі води, вже чорна ваша злоба не впаде. Народ росте і множиться ідея, без ваших нагаїв і палаша. Під сонцем вічності древніє і молодіє, є жорстока і лахіна душа. Народ мій є, народ мій завжди буде, ніхто не перекреслить мій народ. Пощезнуть всі перевертні приблуди і орди завойовників заброд. Вибай з руки катів осатанілих, не забувайте виродки ніде. Народ мій є, в його гарячих жилах козацька кров пульсує і худе.
Слава Україні! Дякуємо вам.
Taras Shevchenko School of Ukrainian Study. Thank you so very much. Thank you so much. Your mission is very, very important for all the Ukrainians who live in Washington, D.C. and in the U.S. Dear supporters of Ukraine, I would like to introduce Ambassador William Taylor, who is the Vice President, Europe and Russia at the U.S. Institute of Peace. In 2019, Mr. Ambassador served as charge d'affaires at the U.S. Embassy in Kyiv and as the U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine from 2006 to 2009. During the Arab Spring, he oversaw U.S. assistance and support in Egypt, Tunisia, Libya, and Syria. He served in Jerusalem as the U.S. government's representative to the Middle East Quartet. He served in Kabul in 2002 and in Baghdad in 2004. Ambassador Taylor, the floor is yours. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
So friends, thank you very much for allowing me to speak to you here today. Ambassador, and my Ukrainian friends, let me just say that we've heard a lot today about how we will be with you as long as it takes. We should add to that. The Americans should add to that. We'll be with you as long as it takes for you to win. For you to win. Let me speak to my American colleagues, all the U.S. citizens here. There are things that we can do. There are things that we should do so that Ukraine will win. Let me just say 3 of them. First of all, President Zelensky and our Ukrainian friends have shown great determination and will to do things for this past year, for this past 9 years, since this invasion began in 2014. It takes will to get things done. It's almost impossible to do what the Ukrainians have done, but their will has succeeded and it will succeed. We Americans need to show the same determination, the same will to get hard things done. 3 hard things that we should do: fires, reparations, and justice. Fires. Right here, there's a sign that says F-16s, ATACMS, long-range fires. Long-range fires will allow the Ukrainian military to break through Russian lines. When they do that, they will break the Russian military. They need long-range fires. We've done some of that. We need to do it longer. The longer-range fires need to come. Number 1.
Fighters for Ukraine.
Number 2. After the victory, there will be the need to reconstruct Ukraine. And who should pay for that? Russia should pay for that, absolutely. There are $300 billion of Russian funds in Western banks. Those funds have been frozen. Those funds now need to be seized and put into a fund that will pay for the reconstruction of Ukraine. That needs to happen. That can happen, but it takes will. It takes determination. It's not easy, but it can happen. $300 billion. It's probably going to take $500 billion, maybe more, to reconstruct Ukraine, but $300 billion right off the bat should come from the Russians. Absolutely. The third thing is justice. And we've talked about justice here today. And we've talked about how important it is to hold all Russians who are responsible for war crimes accountable. Absolutely. But there's no court that can now hold Vladimir Putin responsible for the crime of aggression. There's no court that can do that. We need to establish a court, and that needs to start in the UN. And once that court is established, an international tribunal that can take Putin to court. So that will be hard. That'll take determination. That'll take will. President Zelensky and the Ukrainians have shown us that there is the will. There's the will to win. So we will be with you as long as it takes for you to win, and we will be there to do the hard things for the fires, the long-range fires, for the reparations, and for the justice. Slava Ukraini!
Say wave the flag, wave the flag.
Okay, good. Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador, for standing with us in support of Ukraine. Thank you, Ambassador Taylor. Thank you. Dear friends of Ukraine, I would like to present Mr. Morgan Williams. President and CEO of the US-Ukraine Business Council. We want to thank Morgan Williams for his strong leadership through many years in promoting development of US-Ukraine economic relations, protecting business community interests, and supporting various projects for developing US-Ukraine bilateral relations. Mr. Williams, the floor is yours. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you very much. As she said, I'm the president of the U.S.-Ukraine Business Council. The U.S. Business Council represents hundreds of U.S. businesses that are invested and work in Ukraine. These businesses are in Ukraine for almost 30 years. They are not going anywhere. They stayed through the Orange Revolution. They stayed through the Revolution of Dignity, and they're staying now. U.S. businesses have become Ukrainian businesses. They've invested hundreds of millions. They employ tens of thousands of people. They've kept their businesses over there. They're running them now. They've protected the tens of thousands of Ukrainian employees that they have. They are doing everything to support Ukraine now in this war. You have to have the business community. You have to have income. You have to have jobs. You have to have economic development. And that's the U.S.-Ukraine business community. And the U.S. business community, not as somebody said here, is going to be brought back. They've never left. They've stayed in Ukraine. And they only have two purposes for their work in Ukraine in 2023. Number one, they want to work with the Ukraine government and everybody else. Throw Putin out now. Throw Putin out now. Throw Putin out now. They also want to rebuild Ukraine now. Rebuild Ukraine now. Rebuild Ukraine now. So the U.S. business community is doing everything they can to throw Putin out and to rebuild Ukraine. They've planned to invest a lot more money in Ukraine. You can't have a strong Ukraine without a business community. Ukraine needs economic development. They need jobs. They need investments. And as I said, they're protecting their employees. They're paying all their employees. They have contributed hundreds of millions of dollars to humanitarian efforts. Every one of them has their own humanitarian program. They're supporting families. They're supporting all their employees. So they're doing everything that businesses should be able to do to continue business, but to support their employees during this time of war. Ukraine needs private business, and these businesses need Ukraine. They all, again, want to get rid of Mr. Putin. He is the essence of evil. He actually is evil, and he's against the European Union, and he's against the United States, and he's against a free democratic world. So, again, the main theme, throw out Putin, throw out evil, throw out this murderer, throw out this killer. Putin is not Ukrainian. Putin is not needed in Ukraine. Putin needs to get out of Ukraine. We don't want him in Ukraine. Never wanted him in Ukraine. And so to rebuild Ukraine, we must get rid of Putin. And then as Ambassador Taylor said, we want to thank him for all of his work on behalf of Ukraine. And again, we want to thank the ambassador. The business community is sure that the ambassador was the right person at the right time, at the right place. Let's give her a big hand again, the ambassador. So the next big job is to rebuild Ukraine. And who's going to build Ukraine? It's not going to be in the long run the government or international agencies. It's going to be the private business community. It's going to be the private business community that builds Ukraine, that brings in hundreds of billions, that brings in new technology, that brings in advanced employees to Ukraine. So it's going to be the private business that's going to build Ukraine. It's going to take a long time. Everybody's got to work together. We need to bring about 50 or 60, 70,000 Ukrainians back from Europe, back to work in Ukraine. We need them. We're going to have to bring in hundreds of millions of dollars of supply. So Ukraine's going to have to modernize. They're going to have to change a lot of their policies toward give business. But Ukraine will be rebuilt, and it will be built by this community. So let's throw out Putin now. Let's rebuild Ukraine. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Mr. Morgan Williams for his tireless work in support of Ukraine. I would like to introduce Mark Odan, Chair of the Board of Directors, U.S. Chamber of Commerce. We want to thank Mr. Odan, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and its members for supporting Ukraine. Its valuable role in developing U.S.-Ukrainian business relations and the promising future mechanisms for developing bilateral dialogue on which we currently work together. Mr. Odan, thank you for coming today.
Well, first, Madam Ambassador, thank you for making us feel warm on a chilly day. It's an honor for me to represent the U.S. Chamber and American business to reaffirm our solidarity with the people of Ukraine. We're not connected to this by birth or blood, but absolutely by choice. The Chamber is the world's largest business organization, representing the interests of millions of companies. We have a network of 1,500 state and local chambers and 130 American chambers of commerce around the world. We have rallied support for businesses to get involved and to give back to help support Ukraine. And so far, that effort has resulted in humanitarian gifts of over $1 billion. That's aid providing food, shelter, and clean water for people affected by this horrific act of war. We're also launching the Ukraine Business Initiative to facilitate involvement of all businesses in helping rebuild Ukraine. In the coming months, we will convene a U.S.-Ukraine Business Initiative launched here in our headquarters in Washington, D.C., that will be an enormous effort and undertaking for a multi-year engagement to help rebuild Ukraine. This will, as others have noted, depend on significant financial investment from the private sector. And with that in mind, in partnership with the U.S. government, the Chamber will convene a partnership forum this spring here in D.C. We will be bringing together key business executives, government officials, and other thought leaders from the U.S. and Ukraine to explore the best ways to serve and support the Ukrainian people as they recover and rebuild. It is an absolute honor for us at the U.S. Chamber, representing all of the businesses and all of the people around the world who want to see Ukraine thrive and succeed. Long thrive, Ukraine. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mark. Round of applause. Woo! Thank you. And I would like to present a newly formed vocal group in Washington, D.C. area, U Generation. They will perform medley of the war melodies, which was creating during this difficult year in Ukraine. So please welcome U Generation.
ой там на горі, ой там на круті, ой там на горі, ой там на круті, ой на горі на круті, там сиділа пара, сизими, крильми обіймала, ой на горі на круті, ой на горі на круті, де взявся сокіл за високий гір. Там у тополі в полі, на волі, там у тополі в полі, там у тополі в полі, на волі, там у тополі в полі. Козацькому роду нема переводу, нема рівні козакам, що йдуть за свободу. Козацькому роду нема переводу, нема рівні козакам, що йдуть за свободу. Козацькому роду нема переводу, нема рівні козакам, що йдуть за свободу. Козацькому роду нема переводу, нема рівні в ЗСУ, що йдуть за свободу. Слава Україні! Україна! Україна!
Round of applause for you generation! Woohoo! And as we close our program today, I would like to thank you all for coming together, for showing your support of all our organizations as we continue to provide critical aid to those fighting this unjust war. Thank you for showing the world that we are united and will not be divided in our unwavering support of Ukraine. And I would like to bring on stage our wounded warrior who has sacrificed so much in order to fight for Ukraine, its freedom, its democracy. Please welcome Oleksiy Moroz from 28th Brigade. He received his wound in Kherson. Oleksiy, from all of us here, round of applause to Oleksiy. Дякуємо! 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 Oleksiy, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you for your service. And thank you to all brave Ukrainian men and women who are still in the front lines defending Ukraine. Thank you all for coming together today here in Washington, D.C., across all 50 states, and in so many countries around the world, together with people in every single oblast of Ukraine, Razom. Thank you, and let's keep doing our work together.
Героям слава! Слава Україні! Слава Україні! Слава Україні! Ukraine will win! Ukraine will win! Ukraine will win! Democracy will win! Freedom will win! The bravery of our people, Ukrainian and American, will always overcome fear. Any tyranny will always fail when we stand firm against it, together. Slava Ukraini! Slava Ukraini! Slava Ukraini! Dear friends, dear supporters of Ukraine, we will have a march in support of Ukraine, the march against Russia's war against Ukraine. We will gather right here from this side of the reflecting pool, and we will go to the 17th Street and north, the 17th Street northwest. Then we will take a right to the Pennsylvania Avenue. We will march by the White House with the messages, "Thank you, USA, for supporting Ukraine." And then we will take left to the 16th Street and left to the H Street. And we will go, left to the 15th Street and then H Street. And then we will go to the residence of the Russian ambassador. Please join our march. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. Thank you so much for supporting Ukraine. Thank you. Slava Ukraini! Slava Ukraini! Slava Ukraini!
Україно! Слава нації! Слава нації! I would like to give microphone to Irina. Quick announcement about the buses that are going to Philadelphia. Thank you all for coming. The march is getting settled right there. So please join the march. And Irina, quick announcement.
Окей, друзі, давайте піднімемо всі наші прапори, помахаємо, щоб нас почув Вашингтон.